Namaste. Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome to my channel. My name is Sadhana, and today I'm here to carry on with card comparisons as per your requests. And today we're going to look at the 10 as well, the 10 of Swords and the 10 of Wands, as well as some of the surrounding cards, look at the association, some of the associations with the major arcana, and how we can build in all of this to help deepen our understanding of the energy of these two rather challenging cards. So welcome to my channel. If you haven't been here before, I'm an intuitive reader, an intuitive healer, and just love to work with the tarot. And I teach lots of different tarot classes, so be sure to check out my website, Integrative Healing with Sadhana.com. All of my courses have shifted to the shop. So if you go up to the tab on the top of my website and go to the shop, you'll see what courses are currently available. So thank you for being here today. If you haven't subscribed, please be sure to do so if you like the content of today's video. And then as far as notifications go, I know a lot of people have been having trouble with notifications, not getting them in a timely manner when I go live. So just so you know, I'm going to carry on with this series, same time, same place, every Tuesday indefinitely. And then I go live at 12 noon for readings following this. This is Pacific time on the west coast of Canada. Friday mornings, I'm also coming on as well too. So that's my intention anyway, with more tarot chat, tarot tags and fun things as well. Okay, so let's get to the cards. Today I have out on the table Dame Darcy and the CS Conrad Stein RWS deck, as well as the Sasrabido. And if there's other decks you want me to pull out and I have them handy, I'm happy to do that as well too. So I'm going to switch over to the cards, just make the cards big and me small. And one of the things I want to start with this reflection is where we have come from in each of the suits. So in the suit of Swords, we've come through some really challenging cards. Granted, we don't necessarily go through each of the suits in order, but there is an energy that is contained within the 10. It's a card of completion of the suit of Swords. And so there is, I don't want to say there's an assumption, but there is a presence of the previous cards experience and your personal experience with those cards as well too when the 10 of Swords appears in a reading. So what are the suit of Swords? You know, what do these swords mean? And depending on the deck that you are using, the deck creator may have gone away from actual swords, and there may be feathers or birds or other things that are associated with the element of air. So we are in the element of air. There is a ethereal quality, if you will, to this suit. This suit is not grounded in any way. And we can feel really, really heady and muddled in the mind. This is the suit of mental chatter. It's the suit of the voice. And if you think of the many, many metaphors that, all the different phrases that you know that contain the word sword, you know, double-edged sword, cutting through the truth and so forth. So there is this aspect of our voice, and our voice, you know, it's a very high chakra. It's connected to our authenticity. And as we journey through this very challenging suit, and another thing I want to say is that these cards are not going to come up in a reading if you're not ready to deal with this stuff. You know, you're going to get easier things to deal with. This is a hardcore suit, and this is the suit where we really start to question our, you know, how we want to present ourselves in this world, and to find our voice and to find our authenticity. Authenticity is not easy. And one of the things when we have a lot of sword cards come up in a reading is that question of, am I really speaking my truth? You know, or am I wearing a mask? is this really my voice, or is this a voice that I have rehearsed? So when swords are present, this is a really important inquiry, and lots of journaling can really, really help with the suit of swords. The suit of swords is connected with air. There is an aspect of water that comes in a lot of decks as well too. And historically, I can't really speak to this. I am a yogi, a yoga teacher. I teach a lot of meditation classes as well too, and do chakra studies and teach chakra psychology and so forth. And the element of air is also connected to the heart space in chakra associations. And so if we think of the breath, if we think of breath of life, we have the anatomical heart on the left side of the body, but the heart chakra is very much in the center. And if you think about, the ace of the swords shooting through, sometimes we see a sword. I'm thinking of the 10 of swords. I did a video recently on 78 cards, 78 decks, and I used the 10 of swords from the Enchanted Tarot. I believe maybe that was the 8 of swords. Anyway, whatever it was, the one of the swords was piercing through the crown chakra. And so these swords have an ability to pierce, right? They pierce. They pierce through our pain. You can think about it as acupuncture. You can think about it as, little bolts of lightning. And lightning is even though lightning is associated with fire, lightning is a great thing to look at when we're talking about this. This is a highly transformational suit. Okay, so this is not necessarily about death or a physical death in the 10 of swords. This is more about the death of ego so that we can move to a higher place of consciousness. It's actually a really beautiful suit, and it's a suit for the brave, right? It's the suit for people who want to do the work. And if it comes up and you're not quite ready for it, it can be very, very overwhelming. Okay, so that's kind of just a little intro to the suit of swords and where we've come from. We'll look specifically at the tens in just a moment. And then in the suit of wands, let's just kind of do the same thing. Have a look at where we've come from. It's really interesting how similar, if we put all these 8 cards side by side, how similar they are. So I understand why people will get confused. Hey there, Shannon and Andy, nice to have you here. So in the suit of fire, okay, so the suit of fire is connected to our will. It's connected to our passion, to our creativity. It's also connected to our dharma, right? To our life path. And again, all of the suits carry big spiritual messages. They also carry mundane messages. And that is that's part of the art of reading tarot, is we need to be able to know whether we're going to go mundane or a little heavier, a little deeper, more spiritual and so forth. Spiritual should be lighter, not heavier. And this is not funny how we use lighter for mundane and heavier for deeper. I guess because we're diving deeper. But if you think about it, spirituality is definitely a lighter frequency. It's a higher frequency. And mundane is denser and lower frequency. So I really enjoy listening to the things that I'm not like listening to the things I say, but listening to words, listening to the queerance words, listening to your words in the chat, and that can help us to understand this. So fire, passion, creativity, moving through this suit of heat. So what does heat bring up for you, right? Heat can be irritating. Excessive heat can cause anger. It can cause frustration. It can make us hangry, right? Excessive heat is very challenging to work with. And so in a reading, if it's not balanced with water, it can really, really become volatile. And if it is exacerbated by the air, by the wind of the swords, it can really be a signal for, some need to take some time off and rest and so forth. I just want to go to hi, Lily Valley. Some comments are coming in. Shannon says the subtleties in the cards seem mild or inconsequential in the beginning when learning the meanings, but as I continue to learn the subtleties, they take on more and more meaning. Yeah, there is absolutely no end to this exploration. I pulled the Eight of Wands from the Darkwood Tarot, and it has a resting energy. Eight of Wands. Very interesting. Okay, so I don't have that deck. If you would like to send me a photo of that, I'd be really curious. Or actually, I could look it up on Google later. Eight of Wands, Darkwood Tarot. Okay. Okay, so yeah, I'm very curious to see that energy. So in the Eight of Wands, we're not talking, I'm not going to go any deeper on that. Today we're going to look at the tens, okay? I found a new meaning for the Ten of Wands as I was exploring this card for a recent video. And the way that it's depicted in the RWS is usually it's in shadow. We see somebody who is slouched over carrying a weight, right? Carrying a weight by choice, perhaps, carrying a weight of responsibility, carrying a more metaphorical weight. But this is not pentacles. They're not carrying a load of bricks. They're carrying the consequences of their passion, that they're carrying so here's a really good question. So why has this passion, why has this life path, why has this fire become burdensome? Why is what you love, why is what fires you up become so overwhelming? It's a really good question, right? These wands are not pentacles. It's not stuff. So this is again a really difficult place to be, and we can see some light in every single card. But I want to talk to this other revelation that came up when I was looking at this Jane Darcy Mermaid 10 of Wands. And I was reflecting on the mermaid. So her dharma is to perhaps care for the sea, to maintain the balance of the sea. She lives in the water. There's some, perhaps the mermaids have something to do with the ecology of the water, right? Her dharma, her life path is in the water. But she wants to, I was thinking of the Little Mermaid story. She wants to be on land. She falls in love with this prince. And we see that actually, I believe, in the Four of Wands in this deck, that we have that Little Mermaid story. And so she's not happy with her life path. Her life path has become a weight that she is carrying. And so what I was thinking in this Ten of Wands is that, she's in this place where is life on land really greater than life in the water? And she's questioning what she should do next. So this is a really kind of an important segue and integration of this card. So let's not forget that this is a 10, and the 10s are the culmination of the suit. The 10 is also associated with the wheel, right? And what is the wheel, right? The wheel of fortune. The wheel of fortune is always turning. The cycle of the wheel is always moving. And here we are at the end of a part of our journey. This is the minor arcana, right? Not the majors. So the 10 of Wands, the 10 of Swords takes us to this place of it's like a mini completion. It is if you reduce the 10s, they're a 1. So it's like the 9 is the completion, the third completion, 333. And the 10 is already starting to move us to this next stage. It's deeply connected to the ace. So when I see the 10s, and if an ace does appear in the reading, I know that that querent is ready. They are ready to start again. They're ready to start the new cycle. The end is complete. So I do feel a completion in the 9, and when we get to the 10, there's this, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to go to the next phase. And maybe this is about so I was talking about in the 10 of Swords, the voice and the authenticity and stepping up and moving to this. It's like these 10s are a level up. They're the next stage, the next step of your journey in all that's associated with each of the suits. Okay, let me go to the comments and I'll come to some other cards and we can look at that. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much, Annie. I appreciate that. Okay. And Princess, what's her name? Good morning. Okay. So that's one thing that I want to also look at. The other card that sometimes appears in a reading with one, there's a lot of 10s, is the World card. And so the World, like the wheel, signals change. And we know that we have completed a cycle, and perhaps if we do get a reading where we see a World card or we see a wheel card, we know that the change is a little more significant. It's a milestone. It's a milestone of life, as opposed to a reading where there are no major arcana or fewer major arcana cards. So that's one thing that I want to look for in a reading is aces, world, wheel. These kind of cues and clues that that help us to deepen our perception of the reading. Specifically, what is the difference between these two cards? Well, you have to understand the energy of the suits. And I touched on this briefly. So let's just name a few of these. Let's go to the pictures. And what Eddie was saying about the dark wood tarot, different deck creators are going to bring in different energy and different interpretations. And if you're using a deck that has a different interpretation, there's a reason that deck is on your table. And so you need to speak to that deck, not be struggling with things that you have learned or other books or other courses that you have taken. It's really important to read the cards. Okay? Now, obvious differences are standing up, lying down. What does that tell you in itself? Standing up, lying down. And if you start to build some vocabulary around that. So in the 10 of Swords, the figure is moving. They are going somewhere. Let's look at, in the 10 of Wands, I said 10 of Swords. So this would be speaking to more of a traditional deck, right? So here is a traditional, this is the CS Tarot, traditional 10 of Wands. Traditional, RWS, Pamela Pixie's artwork. So there's some movement. We are going towards something, and the figure is going towards a house. So the fire is continuing to move. There's no stagnancy here. There's no pause. There's that persistence. Okay, we don't get that in the Ten of Swords. In the Ten of Swords, there is a complete surrender. And if you want to use the word death, and we're going to talk next time about the difference between death and the Ten of Swords and a couple of other cards. I think I have to go back and look at the plan. But think about, for those of you that practice yoga, the pose that's done at the end of the yoga class called Shavasana. Shavasana means corpse pose. And why do we do corpse pose at the end of a yoga practice? Well, there's a multitude of reasons. One is we need to integrate the energy. And in a really good yoga class, you're going to get mini shavasanas throughout the class so that you can integrate slowly the bits and pieces that you have done. So this metaphor works really well for this particular card, the Ten of Swords, because there's been a lot of weighty energy in this suit. And this Ten of Swords, I see it partially as that much needed integration. I am going to write down, so we need to look at also the Four of Swords and the Ten of Swords. Four of Swords and Ten of Swords, and I don't have a pen here. So hopefully I will remember to do that. I'm actually going to pull it out right now because that is another interesting discussion. So in the Four of Swords, somebody is lying upright on a tomb, perhaps. And in the Ten of Swords, the person is lying face down on the earth. This would be a brilliant discussion, so cut that out. Okay. So what's the difference? Standing up, lying down, continuing to move, continuing to blast through something. There's this unwillingness to surrender. But in the Ten of Swords, there is this willingness to surrender, to lie down, to let go. But there's no letting go in the Ten of Wands. There's a clinging, there's a holding on. And why? Why are we holding on? Why are we continuing to carry something that is making us feel heavier and heavier and heavier? So big difference in the energy of clinging and holding on tight, you know, like blasting through and then lying down and surrendering to the energy of the swords. We really, really do have a deeply, I don't know, there's something about, there's a beauty in the Ten of Swords. A lot of people have a hard time with the animal cards where you see animals with swords through them. And it really does look more like a death card. And I will pull out a few of those next week. So when we look at the difference between death and the Ten of Swords. But if you think about it as a surrendering, like animals, I feel, from the work that I've done with animals and my own work with nature, are more accepting of the cycle of life than humans are. And in the Sasarabito Tarot, in the Ten of Swords, the swords are more ethereal. And to me, that speaks volumes. I love it when the swords are, it's like, to me, these look like, perhaps they look like little crosses, but they don't feel physical. And the swords rarely are physical. Rarely do swords actually refer to knives and surgical tools and so forth. Once in a while, we can bring that association in, you know, if we need to pick up the energy of a surgeon, or there's, for some reason, there's a rather mundane question that's being asked. And that's a fun way to work with the tarot as well too. But there's something very spiritual about this, about the energy of this. So let me just go and see. Princess, what's her name? And Andy's talking about W2F tarot book. So the relationship, one of the relationships with the Five of Pentacles is that in the Five of Pentacles, in the background, we have a church window, or we have light, or we have something that feels like something. There's a message. There's an opportunity to have spiritual support. And whether we choose to face it and accept it and go to it is another thing. But it's a card where we see the mundane and the spiritual side by side. And there's something. It's been a while since I've read Makara's book, and perhaps I can go back and I will have a look at that before next Tuesday. Okay, so let's look at the Sasarebito 10 of Wands. Another word that can be associated with the 10 of Wands is oppression. And that's a really difficult, it's a difficult word to work with, especially in light of the current climate. We are still dealing with a lot of, racism and the after effects of all of that came out of Black Lives Matter. And oppression, I believe we have in the Urban Tarot. I may be wrong. I believe the Urban Tarot is the one with, there's a black man and he is in an orange jumpsuit in prison, I believe. Anyway, I just want to speak to the word oppression because I feel there's an important discussion here to have with the querent as to if the querent feels this is happening to them, not for them, then the discussion can go in quite a different direction. And you would see that oppression in surrounding cards if you're laying out, a bunch of cards. Usually I do 9 cards when I'm working with a client. Sometimes I do more than 9 cards. And when you have your main card in the center and you've got a bunch of cards around it, you can start to see, you might see where that oppression is coming from or why that is being perceived as oppression. And oppression is very, very real. And whether we're talking about somebody who's in a marriage where there is violence, or we're talking about something in society, with racism, then this is going to show up in these challenging cards. And it's really important to, as a reader, to tread lightly. And if you are not face-to-face with your querent, that you have an ability to ask questions back and forth, because both of these cards can get very, very heavy. They can be very sad, very, very sad. So I was speaking, more to the light, right? They're an opportunity for a revelation of sorts. And so when we're talking about oppression, it's important to empower the querent to help them to understand that they have this is the end, right? It is a 10, it is the end. It may feel like oppression, and it is oppression, but now you've come to this place where you have a choice. And I could very much see when we have the 10 of Wands come up, and there is that energy that probably in the reading, we're going to also have a 7 of Wands. And the 7 of Wands is going to help to support and get that person to stand up. and to move forward. So really, the potential for conversations in these two tens is enormous. Yeah, really, really interesting perception of where the wands and the swords are coming from. Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that, Shannon. And let's go to Lily's comment. I often feel the Ten of Wands like the ultimate resistance of oppression, or a pressure that we receive or that we impose for ourselves. Okay. All right. Bye, Andy. Enjoy your day, and I will see you later tonight in class. I'm going to keep on doing what I'm doing despite all the messages of the universe. And why do we do that? Okay, so I think this is a really good place to kind of wind up this discussion. Because, okay, so why do we do that? We do that because this is the suit of ego. This is the suit of fire. And fire lives in that solar plexus chakra. This is where we deal with ego. And so it's very, very hard to, it's challenging when ego is so strong. And so we've dealt with, we deal with ego in all of the suits, okay, but more so in these two suits. And remember, these two suits that we're looking at are both the active suits. So there's a lot that is being stirred up. And so it would make sense that in the Ten of Wands, the ego is not able to surrender. The ego, right? The ego is what keeps pushing us on and pushing us forward. But once we get to the Ten of Swords, you know, we're at a higher frequency. We're in a higher frequency, and we have a better ability to surrender. So what do I want to say here? I want to say the Ten of Wands is not at the place where the Ten of Swords is. The person is not ready to surrender. The person is not ready to let go. You know, it's like the person who says, I can't step down from being chairman of this committee or chair. I can't step down from being the president of the association because nobody else can do it as well as I can. That's the energy of the Ten of Wands. And the Ten of Swords energy is, I have been through many challenges with all of you people at the table, and I am now ready to pass the torch, and I'm putting my gavel down. So it's a very, very big energy. There is a wrestling. There's a wrestling. So how then is the Ten of Wands? How then is the Ten of Wands a completion if you're not ready to end? You know, that's another good question, because in these tens, they signal an ending. And so what's going to happen is, I would suspect there may be burnout. There may be cards that show up, you know, with the Ten of Wands in a reading. Often there's going to be a card like the Four of Swords, and there's going to be advice for slowing down. So this might come up in a health reading as well too. So there's so many possibilities. I hope this has given you some insight into some of the different ways that you can interpret these cards. Okay, what do we got going here? All right, I think I have answered your questions. All right. So what I'm going to do then is I will add to the list the Four of Swords, Ten of Swords. So we'll do that. But next week, we're going to actually look at the concept of death and the different metaphors for death. And we'll look at the difference between the Death card and the Ten of Swords. And I'm also going to bring in the Tower card, and we'll look at the different energies of that as well too. In an hour's time, I'm coming back to do live readings. And today, because for multitude of reasons, going to look at the Tower energy in the live readings and give you an opportunity to ask questions about moving through Tower energy. So you can go to that thumbnail and have a look at the questions that are in the spread and see if you can think of a question that you might like to ask during that session. So thank you for joining me here today. Please be sure to continue to add your requests for card comparisons. And like I said, I'm going to carry on with the series ad infinitum until I feel like we have reached a conclusion. Okay? Stay well, everybody. Namaste.